joining us, we have Stan Abrams, and he's from the NC Eminent Domain Law Firm. And he's going to be talking with us a little bit about a widening project on US 221. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So this project sounds like it's a pretty big deal. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. It is a project by the Department of Transportation, of course, and they're widening Highway US 221. And the strip of road basically is the part of the highway is from the intersection of 421, which starts in Watauga County, goes up to Ashe County, and it sort of stops there at the intersection with US Business 221 in West Jefferson. So you're looking at probably 15, 16 miles of roadway that's being widened.
Okay. And so what kind of led to the decision to widen this road?
Well, I'm assuming we've all probably ridden up and down that highway numerous times, and
Yes.
It's certainly narrow in a lot of ways, and it's a main corridor. And of course, there's been talk and plans in the works for many years for that project, and now I think it's come to a point where it's been approved. The funding is there from the state and the federal government, and just the narrowness of the highway and the need and the traffic that flows each day up and down that highway has led to the decision now to go ahead and start working on the project.
Great.
Awesome.
So what was the process like of being able to get this approved?
Long process, many stages. They've had public hearings over the years and public meetings where the public could attend and give comments and opinions about the project, and so it's certainly a long process. But again, now is the time, and the reason we're involved at this point is what is happening now is the Department of Transportation is starting the process of contacting property owners on certain sections of the highway. It's such a big project. The way it's divided is they have it divided into different sections. There's an A section, B section, C section, D section, and E section.
Okay.
So the parts that are being dealt with now are the A section, B section, and the D section. And so property owners who have property on those sections of the highway are going to start being contacted, and some of them already have, about the process of the DOT buying or purchasing their property. And so that is beginning really as we speak, and will continue for the next several months.
Okay.
Awesome. So how many people will actually be affected? How many property owners?
The DOT estimates about 150 different
Okay.
properties, and again, just relying on the DOT information at this point, about 70 homes will be affected, even relocated, and about 33 businesses. And so that covers all those sections that we talked about. So it is a fairly substantial project where you're going to have a lot of people having to move, a lot of homes, and a lot of people being relocated, and a lot of business having to move.
Right. So what is the feedback? Are you getting any feedback about how people are feeling about this?
Well, we actually had a meeting last night, and we invited property owners who had properties on those sections that we talked about, and we had about 45 people come. And it's really, it really is a difficult situation for many of those people. They're just now learning that they're going to have to move out of their homes, and some of them have lived there for 25-30 years, and
Right.
the uncertainty of that and the timing of that is fearful. And it's one of those things that you can't really stop as far as the road being widened. That's going to happen, but you want to make sure your rights are protected, make sure you're fully compensated for the taking of your property. And so that's why we have the meetings that we have to inform owners of their rights and how they can, best make it through this situation.
Right. Now, can you tell us a little bit about what these property owners' rights are?
Well, the law is this: the Constitution, both the U.S. Constitution and the North Carolina Constitution say they're entitled to what is called just compensation. And what that means, sometimes that's a phrase and a term that's not understood, but they should be entitled, if you're taking someone's entire property, they should be entitled to the fair market value of their property at the time of the taking. And so a lot goes into that. The DOT will have an appraiser come out and appraise that person's property, and the DOT will make them an offer based on that appraisal. Many times we see the situation where the appraisal is not really as high and as much money as the property owner was anticipating, and so we get involved, make sure they recover exactly what they should recover. But ultimately, to answer your question, they really and many people don't understand this. They're not obligated to accept what the DOT offers. Ultimately, if there cannot be an agreement between the property owner and the Department of Transportation, you have a right to have a jury trial in the county where the property is located. So for these properties, it would be Watauga or Ashe County, and the jury decides how much the property owner receives for the taking of their property. And that's a very important thing to remember, because you're not obligated to take anything the DOT offers. You certainly have a right to negotiate and ultimately have a jury decide how much you recover.
All right.
Nice.
So there is no option of saying, no, I'm not going to move. This is my home. Pretty much, there's only one way to go here.
Yeah, most of the time, once you get to this point, again, the DOT can take property to build a highway. That's a public use. It's necessary. There's really no issue with that. And so it's not a matter of stopping that from happening necessarily. It's more of a matter of making sure, if you have to move, the timing is right. They work with you as far as that goes. You can find you can find somewhere to go and have time to relocate, and you can get fully compensated for that. That is really the issue in just about all of these cases.
And were there any particular questions that stood out to you last night that people asked, or any common questions that property owners were concerned about?
Yeah, there's some common questions. I mean, most of the time, this is the first and only time an owner, a property owner, will have to go through this process. And so, as you might suspect, there's just a lot of uncertainty, and there are a lot of questions. And some people ask, am I entitled just to the tax value of my property? And no, that's really not a fair assessment of what your property may be worth. So just because your tax value is a certain amount doesn't mean you're not entitled to something more than that. Right. So we get those questions. People do ask, is there a way to stop this from happening? Can I stop the DOT or somebody else from taking my property? And we've talked about that, not usually.
Right.
What is the timing of this? When is this going to take place? How much time do I have? Those type of questions seem pretty common. Do I need an attorney? Is it in my best interest to get an attorney? And we certainly believe, our experience is, we think you will be in a better position to recover what you should if you have an experienced attorney. And so we get those type of questions on a fairly regular basis.
Definitely. So what is the time frame for these people?
It varies on different sections. Basically, the time frame, and again, this is not set in stone necessarily. It can be pushed out based on project timelines and those type of things. But what you can expect is, if someone from the DOT sends you a letter, knocks on your door, and starts the process of acquiring your property, at some point after that, they will send an appraiser out, and they will look at your property, inspect it, take pictures, ask you questions, and then 30, 60, 90, maybe even 100 days after that, you will have an appraisal from them that will tell the DOT what they should pay for the property. Then at some point, the DOT will contact the property owner back, and they will make actually a written offer based on what that DOT appraisal is to acquire the property. And so it can be 6 months from the first contact to the first offer. It could be shorter, it could be longer. It just depends on a lot of variables. But it's not a matter of days, it is a matter of months. It's a kind of a long process. Gotcha. Certainly. And then if you don't resolve your case with the DOT, excuse me, then they file what is called a condemnation. And so what happens is, when the DOT files that condemnation, that's a civil action in the county where the property is located. They own a portion of the property they take and they need for the highway. But they also deposit into the clerk's office the amount of their appraisal. And what can happen is the property owner can go in, file a motion, a correct legal motion, have that money withdrawn. They can have that money and continue in the court process to try to get more money. And so, like any legal case, we're not talking about months. At that point, we're probably talking about a year or so for that to finally be resolved, or possibly have a jury trial like we talked about before.
Right.
So it can be a long process, no question about it.
Sounds like a lot of details that have to be.
There's a lot more than what I've said. This is sort of the overview and the short version, but there are a lot of details, and again, that's why we think it's important to have a lawyer who understands this and has been involved in it. Our advantage is we've done this all over North Carolina. We do this. These are the only types of cases we're involved in. My partner and I both worked as assistant attorney generals in Raleigh, and we were lawyers for the DOT actually, and now we've switched sides and we represent property owners in these cases, and so that's all we do.
So certainly this is something that could be kind of scary and inconvenient for a lot of property owners, but what would you say are going to be the main benefits of this project and of widening US 221?
Well, of course, the idea would be that the flow of traffic would be a lot safer. They're going to do they're going to control access on a lot of this widened US 221. In other words, you won't have as many people coming and going off the highway in different driveways and those type of things, and so that improves safety. You could go a little faster probably on it than you can right now and a little safer. And so that's the main benefit. It's a flow of traffic, it's a traffic volume, it's a safety issue. And again, there's no question that there are benefits in general to the community and to that area for the highway to be widened. I think that seems pretty obvious. But with the benefits to the general population, there's going to be this sacrifice, for these group of property owners who have to give up their property, maybe their house, maybe their business, to have this widened. So while we certainly want the benefit of a better highway and a better US 221 that helps everybody in the community, we also have to make sure these people who are sacrificing are really protected and taken care of, and that's kind of what we do.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for coming in to talk with us about this. I'm sure you've been doing a lot of explaining here recently.
I have, yes.
Process.
No problem. Thank you. Appreciate you having me. Nice to meet y'all.
Absolutely.
Thank you, too.
And we'll be back right after these messages with more of the Mountain Television Network.